Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie, and I believe that the right book at the right time can change lives, and that all readers should read children's literature, especially adults. So that's what we do here on the KidLit Love podcast. We celebrate all things children's literature: picture books, early readers, middle grade, and young adult novels for readers of all ages. In each episode, we'll talk with children's literature authors and discuss their books, their hopes, their dreams for readers, their writing process, and much, much more. Whether you're an adult reading to their inner child or connecting the young readers in your life with fantastic books, you've come to the right place. So grab a notebook to build your TBR, and let's get to today's episode of KidLit Love. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the KidLit Love podcast. I'm Stephanie Affinito, your KidLit loving host, inviting you back to another bookish conversation with a children's literature author. Today, I'm talking with Emily Winfield Martin. Emily is the #1 New York Times bestselling author and illustrator of Dream Animals, Daydreamers, and The Wonderful Things You Will Be, just to name a few. She's here today to talk about her newest release, The Wildest Thing. This stunning picture book invites readers to listen to our inner voices that long for us to be brave and bold. Combining words with beautiful, full-color illustrations, this book is both a feast for the eyes and for the heart. I can't wait to talk about it with her in today's episode, so let's get right to it. Emily, welcome to KidLit Love. I'm so glad you're here today.
Thank you, Stephanie. That was such a lovely intro. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I only mentioned a few. I could have said 3.3 million copies of a particular title or
Oh
over
my God.
4 years on the New York Times bestseller list. You have a lot of love behind your picture books from readers, and I would love to start with you just giving us a bit about your journey through children's literature and some of those books.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'm kind of an accidental children's book maker. Because I started out just I got out of art school and was making these kind of strange little narrative paintings, and my editor found me, and a few editors had kind of found me at the time, but I was really, really, really young and fresh and new and had no idea what I was doing. And then my editor, Mallory Laura, found me, and when I was making these paintings, and she said, you're kind of making pictures for stories that don't exist, and that's how I had always conceived of them too. So then we were kind of just off to the races. We did this strange little chapter book called Oddfellow's Orphanage, and then we did Dream Animals, and then we did, we just started working on all of our picture books, and yeah, I think we've done maybe 9 books together. I can't even really remember. It's not that huge, but it's like it's a lot to me.
That's a lot.
Um,
Yes, it is.
yeah. I mean, and it's also you're kind of like, do I count the board books? Do I count what But
Sure do.
yeah, and that's so I've written a middle grade novel. Have kind of a good little shelf of picture books. And then, yeah, I have this is my newest picture book. It's my first picture book in 5 years. It's my first picture book since I had my little girl, and it took a long time, much longer than my books have usually taken me. Even though I'm slow and I'm not super fast anyway. But yeah, this one took about 2 years, which was about twice as long as we expected that it would. But now it's here, and it's going to be out in the world.
Well, kids have a habit or a tendency
Yes.
to make things a little bit more complicated than they were before.
Yeah. I found that I think that a lot of mothers talk about that kind of like compressed time that because of naps or only people with babies or really young children are in this kind of season of life, but um your time becomes really compressed to these strange little like hour or 2 hour pockets, and some people I think are kind of just like, I mean, some people it's maybe a little disorienting, or they can never kind of like find themselves in it. But for me, I really loved that really compressed time. And I mean, my time still feels very compressed, but because I was just kind of like, okay, I've got an hour, I've got 2 hours, she's asleep, what can I do? And like that was really wonderful in a way.
Yeah.
And it did augment the way that I work, obviously, a lot. And it, just changed everything. But I kind of loved it too. I mean, maybe it's like the challenge, or, let me just see if I can make something that wasn't there before at the end of
Mhm.
this nap time.
Hmm. And for me, it was always this sense of awe that I actually did so much in that little
Yes.
bit of time that I
Yes.
don't think I would have done pre-children because I didn't
Yes.
have to.
Nope, you absolutely didn't have to. You're just kind of like, oh, I have the whole day ahead of me. I have,
Yes.
maybe I'll do this and I'll do some laundry and I'll do whatever. And, you'll just like kind of meander through the day in this way that's completely different. If you have the whole day, you could take the whole day. But if
Yes.
you have only 2 hours, then it is kind of astonishing what you can do.
Yes.
Um, yes.
So you mentioned drawing pictures that didn't have stories.
Hmm.
And I love that I get to talk to you about your work and particularly this book because you are both author and illustrator. And so
Yeah.
I'd love to pick your brain and just know a little bit about that process. Do the stories come to you in pictures first and then the words
Um,
flow? Does it go back and forth? How does that work
Yeah,
for
they
you?
kind of go back and forth, and I've approached them differently. And when I was first like a little fledgling bookmaker, we like dream animals. We definitely had roughly planned out the all of the imagery, and then I thought, oh, it's time to write the poem to kind of like string these things together, to kind of like hold all of this idea that we have together. But besides that one, and that was my first, there's kind of like an interplay, I would say, usually. And but sometimes, I mean, with wonderful things, I had a lot of times I'm very I love to think of simple, iconic kind of images, and like that's how my brain works a lot of the time. So in that case, I thought of the little baby that's on the cover with all the balloons, and I had made this kind of little sketchy painting, like little painted sketch of a cover idea. And I had written this poem, and that's all I had of that book. And then yeah, so so sometimes it's both. I'm working on something right now, and it's I've written most of the text, and I've done a similar thing. Like I've made a little cover, like an idea for a cover. And while this thing is kind of similar, I had made a few little like kind of character sketches of what Eleanor might look like. But the text for that book is extremely, I mean, it's very short, it's a really short poem. But that poem is like cut like a diamond. I mean, it's like every single word and every turn of phrase was like visited and revisited and cut and polished and added and subtracted. And so we that the all of the kind of like the enormity of the like all of the art kind of grew up while that poem was being kind of um I don't even know the word, like, because it was like an organic, it was like growing, living thing that was kind
Yeah.
of just like evolving alongside all of the art. And even though it's quite short, and it's like I just don't think anyone would ever know that. That's something that's so short and so kind of seemingly like, oh, she probably just wrote this poem in a day. And
Right.
I mean, and sometimes that's the case. Sometimes that's what happens. But as things kept evolving over like in the arc of the book, and so the text kept evolving. And so yes, I would say we made text changes up into almost the end, which is, I mean, at the very very last second, because it is like the book before it is printed is such a living, breathing, like
Mm.
organic thing. And I don't know if people really realize it when you see the finished product, because it kind of seems like, oh, this is this fully formed.
Right. Just came
Um,
out like that.
yeah, right. And it's just, but it is so, I mean, I mean, people always joke about like the file names are like final,
Yeah.
January 24th, final, whatever. Because you're doing so many iterations of things and so many like things just keep changing, which is wonderful. Like, so, and then like you hear that like right note with the text, like you hear the text kind of sound, it just like rings like a bell. Like I love it when language just kind of like rings, like whether it's like really ornate and beautiful or it's like super elegant and spare, it just like has this kind of just like right little ring to it. Um and you know that it's right. And the same for the art as well. Like there's just kind of no, you're like, there's no false notes here when we go through, and everything kind of feels as it should.
Yeah.
Um, everything in its right place.
Yeah. That beautiful flow that
Yeah.
happens when both
Yes.
together. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just, you just hear this, like, I just like almost literally hear like a little sound that's just like a little tone that's like, oh, it's right. Like everything, just hear it's like the sound of something kind of just like falling into place in this way that kind of like, oh, okay. And you're not unsettled anymore. And like, okay,
Mm.
what,
It's ready.
it's, yeah, exactly.
So the wildest thing,
Mm.
as we both mentioned, is your newest book coming out into the world. I'd love for
Yeah.
you to give a
Really, really
little.
soon.
Yeah, yeah, we are right at launch week. So I'd love for you to tell listeners a little bit about the book, but I'd also love to know the inspiration behind the book.
Well, this is one that has a really good and really funny, very direct inspiration. Sometimes it's kind of just like, literally like little bits of a dream that are floating around in my head for a couple of years, or like just some little scrap of something that I feel like I just kind of can't stop thinking about, or some little image. But the seed of the story for The Wildest Thing was that I work in an attic studio, and in the fall I would hear squirrels on the roof all the time. And one day they're really loud. And one day I heard a sound of some little scratching, and I thought, this is a little too loud to be on the roof. And we realized that a squirrel had gotten into the wall of our house,
Oh,
and it was in the wall of my daughter's room. And we were kind of just like, oh no, how is this guy ever going to get out? And he'd gone through like a tiny chimney. And so I couldn't picture how he would ever kind of claw his way out. But, I'm calling pest guys and whatever, and he got out somehow. We are so grateful he did not perish in the wall. But
mhm.
so there was this squirrel in the wall for a day. And then at the same time, we have this rose that grows on the side of our house, and once in a while it will send a shoot through our windows, through our old windows, and we'll just kind of let it kind of grow and see what happens. And we were sending our neighbor, like we were taking photos every day of it growing like a foot across the ceiling. And so there's this
Wow.
beautiful like green branch just like arcing across the ceiling of our dining room. And that was, the same week as the squirrel episode. And I thought, in this very direct way, what if a little girl's house went wild? And at the same moment, like, what if that was kind of a reflection of her inner reality, as like kind of a mirror of herself? And so that was the seed of The Wildest Thing. And um, the funny thing about The Wildest Thing is that the title is actually from, I don't think the title is in the book anymore. Is it in the text? I don't think that
Nope.
there used to be a line that said, and we just were like, this is superfluous. Like we loved the title, and we were like, this is the right, that it just, again, it had that kind of little like tone. Like we're just like, this is just, it just hit that note, and we're like, this is right. Just like when we found the cover, I made a sketch and I thought, oh, my editor will never like this. This is such a weird sketch of this little girl peering out of some leaves. And I sent her a bunch of other things that were a little more normal, like Eleanor with the animals and whatever. And my editor said, what about this one with the leaves? And I said, oh, really? You like that one? And then I was so excited, because it's like you're so excited when people like the weirdest one. And so then it basically appears like I sketched it more or less in the final cover. But Anyway, the text had a line near the end that is when she's walking down the hall, and it said, Eleanor knew she was the wildest thing of all. And when by the time we finished the book, we thought, I feel like this is self-evident. I don't think we need, it's kind of showing, not telling. We're kind of just like, this feels like it's present in the book in a way that we don't need to spell it out. And so it's funny. It's like just very funny that the title we had plucked from this line that's like, is like kind of now buried in the like sedimentary layers of the book, but isn't actually in the final copy of
Mhm.
the book.
The
Um,
spirit of it is
yeah,
on
it's
the
like
page.
yes, it's in there, like it's in the bones. But yeah, it's a book about a little girl who loves wild things, but she is I imagine her to be a little timid herself, but she so admires all the wild things around her, the bugs and the lizards and the bunnies and like everything that she perceives in the wild world and the flowers and the grass. And one night when she goes to sleep, she wakes up in the morning and the wild has come into her house, and it just grows wilder and wilder and wilder as the day goes on. And as she kind of encompasses all these different parts of herself and kind of like, she kind of gathers up all of those versions of herself and all of those different dimensions of herself to become her full self, her true self. And that's not just a like wild, crazy, rambunctious self, but it's like it is her timid self. It's like a hungry self. It's a dreamy self, or like or a risk-taking self, or all of herselves. Because I think that's what we all are all capable of being. And so yeah, the house, the evolution of the house and the wildening of the house kind of mirrors Eleanor's wildness and her own coalescing into her full being, I guess.
The book to me felt like a really warm hug. You
Oh,
know?
that makes me so happy. And that's one of those things that you can't have a concept of when you're making it. You
Yeah.
don't like, you have no idea how it will feel to people.
Yeah.
But I've heard another person said it's so clear that this little girl is loved and I was just kind of like,
Yes.
what? Like, I mean, because that makes me it makes me want to weep because it's so wonderful to hear. But just hearing that, it means so much because it's one of those kind of things that's like it's imperceptible and it's transmitted in some way that I don't even know that I'm aware of, but I've transmitted that to you.
Yeah.
And it makes me really, really happy because it's in no way conscious. And I don't know if you could even transmit that like warmth or love in like a conscious way,
Hmm.
and have it work, you know?
Yeah. That's the beauty, I think, especially of picture books, where it's in that alchemy of the author's
Yes.
words and the illustrations and the
Yeah.
reader themselves
Hmm.
that just
Yes.
have
Yes.
this magic
Hmm.
that
It is.
brings that to them.
Alchemy is the right word for it. It is like a three-part alchemy for sure. And yes,
Hmm.
it's like but you perceive your perception of like of a hug, or it's just it makes me so happy because yes, it's like I have all these ideas about Eleanor and her like arc and her kind of becoming and all of these things. And it's but I'm also thinking about like the medium, like the medium that I made the book in, or like the trim set, I'm thinking about all these funny other little like particulars of it that you have to be kind of obsessing over while you're making something. And so, but that I like, but that I love to know that like warmth and goodness is kind of like, radiating to you from the book.
Yeah, it was, it's that warm hug feeling that just reminds us that every single part of ourselves, and we all have all of those parts, some that are outward facing, some that are inward facing, some that we
Yeah.
like, some that we don't. We all have all of these different versions and parts of ourselves, as you mentioned. The book just felt like a permission slip to be all of those things
Oh,
and to be open to some of the things that maybe we don't even know is
yes.
in there unless we allow
Mhm.
ourselves to find out. And that's a pretty tall accomplishment for this beautiful lyrical
Gosh,
picture book to just
thank
leave
you.
a reader feeling that way. And I know I
Oh,
will not be the only one.
I am so happy. It's like it's so thrilling to hear that you feel that and that you felt that just from getting the book and holding it and reading it because I mean, I feel all of those things so strongly. And I think, I obviously have felt like Eleanor at times. And I think part of the beauty, and if we're lucky enough to grow up and then get older, is that you kind of like discover these things, like maybe stories you've been telling yourself about the kind of person you are or aren't. And I mean, I think children do that too. And it's something I'm so careful. I try so hard not to say, well, you're this type of person or you like this or something, because it can feel like such a cage if you're like, well, I'm supposed to be the
Yeah.
one that's like really responsible, or I'm supposed to, or I'm the wild fun person, and that's like becomes its own little kind of cage, and you're kind of afraid to be like, well, but what if I'm this other part of myself,
Yeah.
um and you're afraid to maybe disappoint other people, or you're like, I'm stepping out of some role that everyone's really comfortable with me playing. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot, but I think some people will read it on a level that's like, this is about a child using having like a fun
Right.
day using her imagination. And that is so great. And that's like, but it means a lot to me that you perceive that kind of, I don't know, almost like metaphysical, like,
Yes.
holistic, like, um, I don't know. Yeah. Just like welcoming of like all of ourselves
Hmm.
and what that can, like, how powerful that can be.
I think it also points to how this
Mhm.
is a book, yes, that is written for children, but is a book for everyone who has ever been one.
Yeah.
There
Yes.
is a place for every reader here. And some of the language that I love that analogy you used earlier of that poem, turning into a diamond, just being constantly moved,
Yeah.
polished, and shifted into that diamond because the language, I am a word collector. I love writing down phrases that I love.
Mhm.
And of course, there were a couple in this book, but the one that I truly loved was spiraled all the way out of her shell, which
Oh,
which
yeah.
is which is what I would have needed as a child. And
Yeah.
making her own kinds of tracks and blooming and just this beautiful language that brought that feeling of becoming, and allowing and accepting and all of the other wonderful verbs that relate to that. That diamond process was well worth it because all those words just hit home in the most beautiful way.
Well, thank you. That's one of my favorite things about picture books, that I feel like, it's like nobody, if you're not steeped in them, I mean, I think the average person, even who reads to their own children, they just don't have I don't think it occurs to them that the difficulty of picture books and the great beauty of them is that every single thing it's such a tiny stage, and every single word has to count, and every single word has to pull some kind of weight, and you have to, everything has to be plucked out that's not totally essential or doing a job, and like doing some kind of great work within the whole. And so, um, yes, that means a lot to me, that those phrases you particularly liked. And yeah, every single thing is just, I mean, I think with any kind of good book, is especially a picture book, is just like every single thing has to pull some weight and is like heavily considered, and not just kind of tossed in there without thought. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's a wonderful, I mean, I was talking to someone else recently, and it's like one of the tiny stage quality of picture books is one of my favorite things about them, because there's so few things. I mean, films are like this, but films also require, a projector or a screen or something for you to experience them on. But picture book is a tiny world that you can just pick up, and, you can pick it off of a shelf. You can, find it wherever you take it wherever you find it, and then you're in that world, and it's a little tiny world that people have considered every single part of: the cover, the words, every picture, the end papers,
Yes.
and that kind of concentrated world is so, it's like for a visual world, is so rare. It's like there's kind of nothing like them.
Mhm. I would love to follow that tiny world thread and ask
Hmm.
you a question for put your illustrator hat
All right.
back on for this one.
Okay, it's on.
How I'm so curious about the process of how you brought such I mean listeners can't see the book, but it's just these beautiful spreads, sometimes double page
Mm.
spreads that just literally invite you into that tiny world. Are you an old fashioned, like I'm getting my pencil
Yes.
and those
Yeah.
you are? That
Yeah.
makes me so
I'm an
happy.
I'm an old timey artist for sure. I mean, it's like I have the iPad and I have Procreate and I've
Yeah.
like fiddled around with it a little bit. And it's like it's something that it might be great to get good at, but it's its whole own skill. I have friends who are incredible at it and like their work totally translates and they've figured that all out. And that's like an amazing leap, I think, to make. But for me, I was a painter first, and so I was always painting, 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 and then in the last 5 years since my daughter was born, I bought myself some colored pencils because I love colored pencils and the kind of the like there's something so modest about them. Like they're just I don't know. I love the look of colored pencil work, and there's something just very humble about them and very sweet. But I also really loved that they were so much more like portable than a big box of paints and water and palette and everything. And so, even though all of the wildest thing is also painted in gouache or acrylic, there's a lot of colored pencil work in there that I feel like also really suited the subject because it was really great for little bits of fur and little tendrils of grass and little all these little things that kind of gave this little like texture to the house and to Eleanor. So yeah, I kind of married those things together, kind of like drawing and painting together for this book. But yes, I make my paintings and my drawings, and then I scan them in and clean them up a little bit. Sometimes, like I literally, if there's like little bits of fuzz or whatever, and then I send them to my art director, on Dropbox or whatever. But yes, some people are so old school that I think they still send their originals to the publisher,
Oh.
which is so cool. I think that's like really romantic. There's something really
Yes.
like neat about that. But I like it's nice to just have everything, like know where everything is and not have to send it out into the world and
Yes.
be
That would
worried
be
that
terrifying, I
yes,
think,
it would
to
be
do.
so yes, it would be such an incredible leap of faith to just I write all of the originals for this book, a year or two of my time. I'm just gonna ship them out the door.
Yes.
But yes, some of my pieces are so big that I have to scan them. Like for Eleanor, quite a few pieces that had to be scanned in a few parts and then kind of stitched together in the computer because they're 20 inches wide or 24
Yeah.
inches wide. They're just like a little too big. But yes, I'm still an old-fashioned artist
Mhm.
for the most part.
Well, I love that because I feel like when you look at the pages, you can tell that homemade care, like that
Yeah.
hand drawn, even though everything technically is hand drawn. I feel
Yeah,
like you can
yeah. No.
feel
Yes.
that in it, which contributes to that warm hug kind of feeling.
Well, thank you. And I think that like it's interesting. I think that's something we're all kind of facing a reckoning about because of AI and the ascension of some of this like how unbelievably perfect or I don't even know if perfect is the wrong word because that's kind of too positive, but slick or kind of, like polished some things have become that I think there's this real hunger for
Hmm.
things that are a little imperfect and that only that kind of imperfection that can kind of unquirk that can only come from like a human being,
Yes.
um, and a human hand. And so there's definitely like a lack of perfection, I think, in that's implicit in like in hand drawn and hand painted things.
Mhm.
Because it's just not possible. I mean, um, to be as tidy in the way that if you are literally on your iPad, it's like there isn't any dust, there's no little smudges that are going to happen accidentally, all these things, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, there's a beauty in that kind of crispness, but yes, I love analog artwork, but it's also really cool how difficult it's becoming to distinguish sometimes like how did somebody make this because there's some really cool Procreate brushes and like digital textures and things, and you're kind of like you're just, I mean, even I, who am just like examining things all the time and like reverse engineering them in my mind, I'm kind of like, I can't really figure out how they did this, and like
Yeah.
that's really neat too, you know.
Yeah. So as you think of this book going out into the world, right, about now, actually, as
Yeah.
the episode is being
Yeah.
released, what is your hope for the book or your hope for readers who get the book in their hands?
Well, I hope when people see this strange, kind of enigmatic little cover with green leaves, they'll be kind of like intrigued, kind of, you know, I imagine her like peering out at people at the bookstore and like through her leaves, and people say, "What is this?" And then pick it up and open it and see this kind of, excuse me, this kind of universal story in it of this little girl who is embracing all the parts of herself. And especially, I think it's like the gender part of it is not, I don't think can be completely like we. It's like that feels significant to me too. Like as much progress as we've made, I feel like it's often especially hard for women to be women and girls to be all of their versions. I mean, it's hard for everyone to be every version of themselves, but um yeah, I hope that everybody, but especially um, women and little girls, can kind of like see, oh, this is like these are all like all these parts are welcome, all these parts are safe to be and good to be, and yeah, and also it's like I think one of the things that it was important to me when I realized I had kind of inverted where the wild things are, which was not intentional. I realized that, you know, like well into making the book, I thought, oh, I've kind of just flipped wild things. Um, was that wildness doesn't just have one shape, and that's something I feel like we have this kind of like narrow concept of what a wild thing is, and that is absolutely not to take away from the like amazing monsters and kind of wolf suit wildness of Max. But what I mean, if you think of the natural world, like wildness can be incredibly quiet or incredibly gentle or nurturing or whatever. You know, it can be all of these things. And so that I feel like is an important dimension of it too. It's just that wildness can mean a lot of different things and can kind of be all of those things, you know, within the same day.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hope people, what I think everyone's hope always is just kind of like, I hope that people will just give it a chance, you know, just give it a chance and take it and pick it up and take a look at it and hopefully be like, you know, a little enchanted with what they find, and
Mm.
see themselves in it too.
Yes. Yes, all the versions of themselves.
Yes, all the versions of
Yeah.
themselves. I hope they'll see it as a little bit of a mirror and not just, oh, well, this is just this one little girl with messy brown hair. This is just her story because it's, you know, it's
Right.
kind of everybody.
Yeah. So even though this is your most recent, brand newly released book, I imagine you always have ideas and things up your sleeve that you're working on. Is there anything you can give us a sneak peek into before we say
Oh,
goodbye?
yes. Well, I know that's the funny thing. You probably hear this all the time because I don't know that people fully understand how unbelievably lengthy sometimes the
Yeah.
publishing schedule can be. And so oftentimes, I mean, Wildest Thing I only finished in this last spring, so it wasn't terribly long ago, but sometimes, you know, people are kind of like, oh, I'd finished this book 2 years ago.
Right.
And now it's coming out. But Wildest Thing, it wasn't super long ago. But in the intervening time, I've been working on some other things. And I have a book of short stories actually that I we put aside so I could work on Eleanor, because I was so when the squirrel and everything happened, I was so the idea just was so like urgent and burning just a hole in me. And that's like, it's one of those things that I think publishers are often really incredibly gracious about because they understand they're working with people who are like the act of inspiration, or, you know, it can't be plotted out on a calendar neatly, and it's like it's often really unruly and untidy the way that it all works. And so my editor was very kindly said, okay, this is obviously, this is, this is what we're doing. So we made Wildest Thing, but I have a book of kind of magical short stories that we're going to revisit and work on this year to hopefully come out maybe the next year. And then I've been working on a story that's been floating around in my head for a couple of years, but it's a Christmas story. And I kind of thought, oh, I'll never make a Christmas book. But then this idea kind of just like came into my head about a Christmas fairy, and what it would mean for somebody who doesn't know what Christmas is, but is actually very good at Christmas, if that makes sense. Kind of like somebody who instinctively is being very generous and has this like really kind of luminous giving heart, but doesn't even realize that it is Christmas. Anyway, that was kind of the seed of this idea that I've been, so that's something I've kind of been like, it's been like unfurling a little bit in the last like it just felt so right to be working on it right around Christmas,
Right.
since we're recording this in it's almost January and we've just had Christmas. And so so I have a little Christmas story that I'm hoping will become something. And I have some books I'm going to work on with Tara Walker at Tundra, which is like Canadian Random House children's books. But yeah, I'm my little girl's a little older now, and she'll, I think, be going to kindergarten in the fall, which is crazy. And so I'm really excited about having even more, like my time will still be compressed, but I'll have it a little bit more. And yeah, I'm just always like, I'm not one of those people who is ever at a loss who's ever kind of like, oh, what am I going to work on? Have, if anything, just way too many things kind of stacked up to do, and like not enough. I wish I had a magic wand to just say, boop, and I could, just say like, all right, and now this, I know exactly how it should look and be, and it'll just magically, like it'll materialize. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, it takes a much longer time than that. And so I'll just have to keep wading through. But it's a wonderful, it's like a wonderful problem to have.
Yeah.
Um, just have all of these, like have a whole kind of like forest of ideas that you're like kind of forever lost in.
hmm
Um,
And
yeah.
that may be unfortunate for you, but it's fortunate for us
I
as
know.
the readers.
Well, thank you very much. That's really kind. It makes me, I just hope that I feel I've always felt a sense of extreme urgency about I've got to do all of these things. I've got to get all these ideas out of myself. And so, um, yeah, hopefully I will have many more things, coming out and all over the place, like a little board book. We have a board book coming out next year that's really sweet, little board book for Halloween. And like there's like I'm happiest, I think, when I can kind of hop around and do all kinds of things. And so yeah, and so that's what I'll be doing. Um
Oh.
this
Now,
was so
where?
wonderful.
Oh, I loved our conversation, but I have one more question for you so that
Yeah.
listeners can kind of keep track of all that
Oh,
might be coming their way. Where's
right,
the best
right,
place
right.
for them to find you online?
Well, for right now, I mostly would say Instagram. I have like my regular account where I post like artwork, and that's Emily Winfield underscore. I think it's like um not the easiest to find. But my children's book account is Emily Dream World at Emily Dream World. And so that's where I try to post any kind of book, or, if there's a book release or any kind of big news like that. That's where I will for sure post that. And I need to work on my website, as everybody is kind of like, oh, I always need to work on my website. My website is woefully out of date, so I need to work on my website. But Instagram's fairly current, and so that's probably the best place to find me for now. It'd be great to do like a newsletter or something, so maybe that will come. But yeah, for right now, that's where I'm at.
Okay, well, I will find the one that may be harder to find, and
Yeah,
I'll make
yeah,
sure that they'll be in the show notes so that everyone can
yeah,
find you
yeah.
easily.
It's just I think it's Emily Winfield underscore. It might be two underscores.
No problem. I will find it.
All right. Yeah, I don't
Thank you
think
so
it.
much.
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie. This
Yeah.
was great. It was a lovely way to spend a morning.
Yes, it was. Thank you. And listeners, of course, thank you for listening to another episode of KidLit Love, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the KidLit Love podcast. You'll find links to all of the books, resources, and ideas mentioned in the show notes and at alitlife.com. You'll also find KidLit Love on Substack. That's where you'll find posts for each episode, monthly KidLit roundups, and an invitation to join my summer book club and go deeper into the world of children's literature. And if you loved this podcast and want more, you might like to listen to my other podcast called Get Literate. It's a podcast that explores all things books and reading, notebooks and writing to build a life you love. One more thing. If you love what you listened to today, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast, or take a screenshot of the episode and text it to a friend. This helps the podcast grow and builds our bookish community of KidLit Love. Thanks for listening.